My name is Michael, and I am 40 years old. And what I am about to share is the most painful chapter of my life. People say family is everything, that blood is thicker than water. But what do you do when the very people who should protect you turn against you? When the ones who raise you defend the person who ripped your life apart? That is the question I have wrestled with for years. And the answer has left me scarred, but also freed that I grew up in a household that from the outside looked perfectly ordinary. My parents were hardworking, traditional people who always preached about family unity, about sticking together no matter what. I was the eldest son, and with that came expectations, responsibility, stability, the quiet role of setting an example. Then there was my younger brother, Ryan, 3 years my junior. From as early as I can remember, Ryan was the golden child. He was charming, quick with a joke, the kind of person who could walk into a room and instantly command attention. I was the steady one, the dependable one, the one who never gave them trouble. But somehow, it always felt like Ryan could do no wrong, while my achievements were quietly acknowledged and then forgotten. When I met Sarah, the woman who would become my wife, I thought I had finally built something that was mine, something apart from the family politics that always seemed to revolve around Ryan. She was kind, warm, and she grounded me in ways no one else ever had. We got married in a small but beautiful ceremony, and I truly believed we were building the kind of life my parents always claimed they wanted for us. A home, stability, children someday. For a while, things were good. But as time went on, I began to notice a troubling pattern. Ryan was always around, tea first, it seemed harmless. He'd stop by for dinner, crack jokes, bring over a bottle of wine. Sarah liked him. Everyone liked him. And I didn't want to be the jealous husband who complained about my own brother visiting. But slowly it began to gnaw at me. He'd call Sarah when I was at work, offering to help her with errands. He'd show up uninvited when I was running late. Once, I came home to find him fixing a loose cabinet handle in the kitchen, Sarah laughing as he exaggerated the difficulty of the job. It all seemed innocent, but deep down, I felt a knot of unease. When I brought it up to Sarah, she brushed it off. Michael, he's your brother. He's just trying to be nice. Don't overthink it. Maybe she was right, I told myself. Maybe I was overthinking. After all, Ryan had always been the type to charm his way into everyone's good graces. Why should this be any different? But then the comments started. Little things Sarah would say in arguments like, why can't you be more easygoing like Ryan? Or Ryan thinks you work too much. At first, I ignored it. But over time, I realized Ryan wasn't just showing up. He was inserting himself into the fabric of my marriage. He was offering opinions, advice, even criticism, and Sarah was listening. The breaking point in those early days came one Saturday evening. We were hosting my parents for dinner, and Ryan, of course, showed up early. Halfway through the meal, Sarah mentioned that I had been stressed at work and not very communicative at home. Before I could even respond, Ryan laughed and said, "That's classic Michael. Always bottling things up. You need to loosen up, brother." Everyone laughed, even my parents, and I sat there feeling humiliated in my own home. It wasn't just a joke, it was a judgment, one that painted me as the uptight, failing husband, while Ryan got to be the carefree hero. After my parents left, I confronted him on the porch. "What are you doing, Ryan? You think it's funny to undermine me in front of my wife? In front of mom and dad?" He shrugged, smirking. "Relax, Mike. It's just banter. You're too sensitive. Too sensitive." That phrase burned into me. It was the same excuse he had used his whole life whenever he crossed a line, turning the blame back on me for daring to be hurt. I tried again to talk to Sarah, but she dismissed my concerns. "You always assumed the worst about him," she said. "He's just being Ryan." Maybe so, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting, that Ryan's presence was no longer harmless. The closeness between him and Sarah began to bother me in ways I couldn't put into words. The way they exchanged knowing looks during conversations, the way she laughed a little too hard at his jokes, the way he always seemed to know more about our marriage than he should point one night. I came home late from work and found them sitting on the couch together, heads close, whispering. They jumped apart when I walked in, Sarah fumbling for an excuse about discussing something for the kids' charity she was involved in. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But the pit in my stomach told me the truth I wasn't ready to face. My brother was crossing a line, and my wife wasn't stopping him that I didn't explode that night. I didn't accuse or shout. Instead, I went upstairs, sat in the dark, and stared at the wall until the early hours of the morning. In that silence, I admitted to myself something I had avoided for months. My marriage was no longer mine alone. My brother had inserted himself into it, and if I didn't confront it soon, I was going to lose everything. That was the moment when the storm truly began, though I didn't know it yet. Because the betrayal that would soon destroy my marriage wasn't just about Ryan or Sarah. It was about the people who would choose sides when everything fell apart. And I never imagined my parents, of all people, would defend the man who tore my life to pieces. The months that followed were some of the most confusing of my life. On the surface, everything looked normal. Sarah and I still went to dinners, attended family events, and smiled for photos. But underneath, the foundation of my marriage was crumbling, and Ryan was right there at the fault line, prying it open wider with every smirk, every careless comment, every helpful gesture that wasn't helpful at all, that I began to notice things that I couldn't ignore anymore. Sarah started texting late at night, her phone screen lighting up in bed beside her. When I asked who it was, she'd say just a friend or work stuff. But I wasn't stupid. I caught glimpses of Ryan's name on her screen more than once. When I brought it up, she turned defensive, accusing me of being paranoid. "He's your brother, Michael," she snapped. "Why are you so suspicious all the time? Don't you trust me?" Those words stung because of course I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe my wife would never cross that line, that my own brother wouldn't betray me in such a way. But the late-night texts, the whispered conversations, the way she'd suddenly leave the room to take a call, it all built a picture I could no longer ignore. One night, after a long day at work, I walked into the living room and found Ryan there again. He was sitting too comfortably on the couch, a beer in his hand, laughing with Sarah about something I wasn't a part of. I stood there in the doorway, watching, and for a moment they didn't even notice me. When they finally did, Ryan grinned. "Hey Mike, just keeping your wife company while you're busy working those late nights." Something inside me snapped. "Get out," I said, my voice low but sharp. Sarah gasped. "Michael, don't talk to him like that." But I didn't back down. I looked Ryan dead in the eyes and repeated, "Get out." He smirked, took his time finishing the beer, and finally stood up. "You're too uptight, brother. Loosen up." Then he walked out, leaving me shaking with rage. When I turned to Sarah, expecting her to finally see what I saw, she instead unleashed on me. "What is wrong with you? He's your brother. He was just keeping me company. You're being paranoid, Michael. You always blow things out of proportion." Her words felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Instead of defending me, instead of acknowledging how inappropriate it was, she defended him. Again, the tension between us grew unbearable. Every conversation turned into an argument. Every silence felt loaded with unspoken accusations. I started working even later, partly to avoid the suffocating atmosphere at home, partly because I didn't know how to fix what was unraveling. Then came the night that broke everything. I had left work earlier than usual, determined to surprise Sarah with takeout from her favorite restaurant. I walked into the house quietly, planning to set everything up before she got home from errands. But when I opened the door, I froze that Ryan's car was in the driveway. I stepped inside and heard laughter coming from the kitchen. My chest tightened, my hands trembling as I walked closer. There they were, Ryan and Sarah, standing too close, laughing in a way that wasn't innocent. The kind of laughter people share when they're comfortable, too comfortable. Ryan noticed me first. His smile vanished, but Sarah turned slowly, her face pale. The takeout bag slipped from my hand and hit the floor. For a long, agonizing moment, no one said a word. Finally, I whispered, "How long?" Sarah stammered, "Michael, it's not what you think," but Ryan interrupted, his voice calm, almost arrogant. "Don't make this dramatic, Mike. We didn't mean for it to happen, but it did." My knees nearly buckled. My brother, my own brother, the man I grew up with, defended as kids, shared a room with, laughed with, standing there admitting he had crossed the one line no one should ever cross. And Sarah, the woman I promised to spend my life with, stood silent, tears streaming down her face, but no denial on her lips. I don't remember much of what happened after that. I remember shouting. I remember Ryan leaving with that smug look still on his face, and I remember Sarah trying to grab my arm, begging me to listen. But all I heard was the sound of my world collapsing. In the days that followed, the truth came out in pieces. It hadn't been a one-time mistake. It had been going on for months. Late-night texts, secret meetings, lies stacked on lies. And every time I'd felt that gnawing pit of unease, I had been right. That I asked Sarah to leave, and she did, moving in with her sister. The house felt hollow without her, but at least I could breathe again. My heart was broken, my trust shattered, but I thought, naively, that at least my parents would be there for me, that they would see how deeply Ryan had betrayed me. But when I told them what had happened, when I sat at their kitchen table with tears in my eyes and said, "Ryan destroyed my marriage," their reaction was nothing like what I expected. Instead of anger at him, instead of comfort for me, my mother sighed and said, "Michael, marriage is complicated. Don't blame your brother. These things happen." And my father added, "Ryan has always been impulsive, but he didn't mean to hurt you. You need to forgive." Forgive. The word echoed in my head like a cruel joke. My wife had betrayed me with my brother. My marriage was in ruins, and my parents, the people who raised me, were asking me to forgive the man who caused it all. That was the moment I realized the betrayal ran deeper than I ever imagined. Because it wasn't just Ryan who had destroyed my marriage. It was my parents too, by choosing to defend him instead of me. And in that instant, a new kind of anger took root inside me, one that would soon push me to make a decision I never thought I'd make. The weeks after discovering the truth felt like living in a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Every morning, I opened my eyes to an empty side of the bed, the silence of a house that had once been filled with laughter and the memory of Sarah's face when I caught her with Ryan. I should have been grieving my marriage, and I was, but what cut even deeper was the reaction of my parents. Instead of rallying around me, instead of condemning what Ryan had done, they treated him like a child who had made a careless mistake, someone who needed protection rather than accountability. I'll never forget the first family gathering after everything came out. It was at my parents' house, a Sunday dinner like we used to have growing up. I debated not going, but some part of me still craved support, still believed that if I showed up broken and raw, they would finally see me, finally understand the depth of my pain. Instead, what I walked into was a performance that felt like a betrayal all its own. Ryan was there, of course, sitting at the table as though nothing had happened, cracking jokes with my father, helping my mother carry dishes. When I entered, the room fell silent for a moment, but then my mother forced a smile and said, "Michael, I'm glad you came. Let's just try to be a family tonight." A family, if my brother hadn't destroyed mine that I sat down, but every bite of food tasted like ash. Ryan avoided my eyes, but the smugness on his face told me everything I needed to know. He didn't feel remorse. He felt invincible. My parents had shielded him, and in his mind, that meant he had won. Halfway through dinner, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "How can you sit there and act like nothing happened?" I asked, my voice trembling with rage. The table went quiet. My mother's hand flew to her chest. "Michael, please. Not at the table." "No, he snappat. We're going to talk about it. Ryan destroyed my marriage. He crossed the one line no brother should ever cross. And you're sitting here laughing with him as if he didn't rip my life apart." Ryan finally spoke, his voice calm, almost rehearsed. "Mike, I didn't mean for it to happen. Things just got complicated between Sarah and me. I'm sorry you're hurt, but we didn't set out to hurt you." I stared at him, disbelief flooding through me. "You didn't mean for it to happen? You slept with my wife, Ryan, for months. Don't stand there and act like it was some accident." My father slammed his hand on the table. "That's enough. We are not going to tear this family apart over a mistake." A mistake. That word rang in my ears. Was my marriage a mistake? Was my trust a mistake? Was the love I gave Sarah a mistake? Or was the mistake simply believing my parents would ever hold Ryan accountable? I pushed back from the table, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You've made your choice," I said, my voice low but shaking. "You've chosen him. Don't expect me to sit here and play happy family while you defend the man who betrayed me. I walked out that night, my chest heaving, tears burning my eyes. I sat in my car outside their house for nearly an hour, gripping the steering wheel, fighting the urge to drive into the night and never come back. In the days that followed, the rift between me and my parents grew deeper. My mother called, begging me to be understanding. "Ryan is your brother," she said softly. "You can't throw away your relationship over this." But every time she said it, the rage inside me grew. They wanted me to protect the bond of brotherhood, but Ryan had destroyed it. He had taken something from me that could never be returned. And instead of standing by me, my parents asked me to be the bigger person, as if my pain was less important than keeping the family image intact. Sarah, meanwhile, tried to reach out too. She texted me, called me, even showed up at the house once, crying on the doorstep, begging for another chance. She said she had made a mistake, that she didn't want Ryan, that she wanted to fix what we had. But every time I looked at her, all I could see was the betrayal. I couldn't separate the woman I had loved from the choices she had made. Point one evening, I went to my parents' house again, thinking maybe, just maybe, they would finally understand. Instead, I walked in to find Sarah there, sitting at their kitchen table, drinking tea with my mother. My chest constricted. "What the hell is this?" I demanded. My mother stood quickly. "Michael, calm down. Sarah just wanted to talk. We think you're being too harsh, shutting her out like this." Too harsh that I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wife had betrayed me with my brother, and instead of supporting me, my parents had invited her into their home, comforting her as if she were the victim. I turned to my father. "You're supposed to be on my side." He looked at me evenly and said, "We're on the side of family. Ryan and Sarah made mistakes, but that doesn't mean you can throw them away." That was the moment something inside me snapped for good. I realized then that my parents didn't see me. They never had. To them, Ryan was the golden child, and I was the one expected to endure, to forgive, to sacrifice. My pain didn't matter. My marriage didn't matter. My dignity didn't matter. What mattered was keeping Ryan safe from consequences. No matter the cost, I left their house that night and drove aimlessly for hours, my mind racing. The betrayal felt like a weight crushing my chest, but beneath it, something else was forming, a clarity I had never felt before. If my parents wanted to defend Ryan, if they wanted to erase my pain for the sake of their golden child, then they weren't my family anymore. And as that thought took root, I realized the only way to survive was to walk away from them completely. The decision to cut my parents out wasn't made overnight. It built slowly, like a fire smoldering under the surface until the flames finally broke through. Every interaction with them after the betrayal was another spark, another reminder that they weren't on my side, that they would never hold Ryan accountable. But the final explosion, the moment when I truly severed the bond, came one evening that is burned into my memory forever. It was a Saturday night, a few months after Sarah had moved out. The divorce papers were in motion, and I was just beginning to accept the ruins of my marriage when my parents called and insisted I come over. "We need to talk as a family," my mother said in that pleading tone she used when she wanted to guilt me into obedience. Against my better judgment, I went. When I arrived, I knew immediately something was wrong. Ryan's car was parked outside. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself inside. There they all were, my parents sitting stiffly at the kitchen table, Ryan leaning back in his chair with that infuriating smirk, and to my absolute shock, Sarah. I stopped in the doorway, my voice sharp. "What the hell is this?" My mother stood quickly, her hands outstretched. "Michael, please don't be angry. We just thought if we all sat down together, we could find some peace. This fighting is tearing the family apart." I stared at her in disbelief. "Peace? You invite my brother, the man who destroyed my marriage, and my ex-wife into your house, and you think we're going to find peace?" Ryan spoke up, his tone maddeningly casual. "Mike, you're being dramatic. This doesn't have to ruin everything. We can move past it." Those words ignited something inside me. Move past it, as if my marriage, my dignity, my trust were just disposable, things to be brushed aside for the sake of convenience. I slammed my hand on the table so hard that the cups rattled. You slept with my wife, Ryan. And you. I turned to Sarah, who flinched under my gaze. You destroyed the vows we made. And you want me to just move past it? My father's voice boomed. Enough. Michael, we are tired of this anger. Mistakes were made. Yes, but family is about forgiveness. Ryan is your brother. Sarah is still part of this family. You cannot throw them away. I felt my chest tightening, my pulse pounding in my ears. You don't get it, do you? You've defended him from the moment this happened. Not once have you stood by me. Not once have you acknowledged the hell I've been living. You sit here asking me to forgive, to forget, to sacrifice everything just so Ryan doesn't have to face consequences. My mother's eyes fill with tears. We just don't want to lose our family. Please, Michael, think about what you're doing. But in that moment, I saw the truth as clear as day. I'd already lost my family. Not because of me, but because of them, because of their refusal to see my pain, because of their choice to defend Ryan no matter what. I looked at Sarah then, her face pale, her eyes full of guilt. And you, I said bitterly, I loved you. I gave you everything I had, and you threw it away for him. Do you think I can ever sit across this table and pretend we're still some kind of family? Do you think I'll ever look at either of you without seeing the betrayal? The room was silent, heavy, suffocating. Ryan looked away, finally stripped of his smirk. My father clenched his jaw, my mother sobbed quietly, and Sarah stared at the floor. I stood, my voice shaking but resolute. I'm done. With all of you. If you want to defend him, if you want to erase what he did, then you can have each other. But you don't have me anymore. My mother gasped. Michael, you can't mean that. I do. I cut in sharply. I mean every word. You've chosen him over me my whole life, and this was the final straw. I will not be part of a family that defends the man who destroyed mine. Consider this the last time you'll see me in this house. I turned and walked out, ignoring their shouts behind me, ignoring the sound of my mother crying, ignoring Ryan calling after me as if his words meant anything anymore. I got in my car, slammed the door, and drove away. The drive home was a blur of headlights and tears. My hands gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, my chest heaving with sobs I couldn't hold back anymore. Cutting my parents out wasn't just a choice, it was a necessity. Because if I stayed, if I kept letting them minimize my pain, I would lose myself completely. That night, as I sat alone in my quiet house, the weight of it hit me. I was truly alone now. No wife, no brother, no parents. But for the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt something else beneath the grief. Clarity. I realized that sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to let go of the people who hurt you, even if they share your blood. And though the loneliness was unbearable, I knew deep down it was the beginning of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. The weeks after I cut my parents out were some of the darkest days I have ever lived through. The silence in my house was deafening, and the weight of my decision pressed down on me like a boulder. For the first time in my life, I was truly without a family. No wife, no parents to lean on, no brother to call. It was a loneliness that seeped into everything, a constant ache that followed me from the moment I opened my eyes in the morning until I finally drifted into restless sleep at night. But as painful as it was, there was also a strange sense of relief. I no longer had to brace myself for my parents' dismissive words or Ryan's smug grin. I didn't have to endure the humiliation of sitting at a dinner table where my pain was minimized and my betrayal ignored. The silence, though crushing, was at least mine. It belonged to me, and it was honest. People around me noticed the change. Friends reached out, some confused by my sudden withdrawal from family gatherings. A few even tried to convince me to make peace. They're your parents, one of them said. You only get one family. But I would shake my head and tell them the truth. Family isn't just blood. Family is supposed to protect you, to stand by you. If they can't do that, then what are they? Work became my refuge. I threw myself into long hours, projects, and late nights, anything to keep my mind from wandering back to the gaping wound inside me. But grief is stubborn. It finds you even when you're busy. Some nights I would leave the office, sit in my car, and cry until I couldn't anymore. Other nights, I'd drive aimlessly, circling neighborhoods filled with happy families, wondering how my life had gone so wrong. One evening, about 2 months after that final confrontation, my mother showed up at my door. I almost didn't open it, but something inside me wanted closure. She stood there with tears streaming down her face, holding a plate of food like it was still the 1980s, and she could fix everything with a home-cooked meal. "Michael," she said softly, "please don't do this. We miss you. Ryan misses you." Her words cut deep, but I forced myself to stay calm. "You miss me? You miss me enough to invite Sarah into your home after what she did? Enough to defend Ryan every time I begged you to see my pain? You don't miss me. You miss the version of me who stayed quiet, who sacrificed himself so Ryan could shine." She cried harder, reaching for my arm. "He's your brother. We can't just turn our backs on him." I pulled away, "But you turned your backs on me, and that's something I'll never forget." I closed the door before she could say anything else. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but also one of the most necessary. That was the last time I saw my parents. As the months turned into a year, I began to rebuild. Slowly, piece by piece, I found myself again. Therapy helped. I finally allowed myself to speak openly about the betrayal, the favoritism, the years of being the responsible son while Ryan was excused for everything. My therapist asked me once, "Why do you think they always defended him?" And the answer came to me clearly: because it was easier. Easier to put the burden on me, the strong one, the dependable one, than to hold Ryan accountable. Easier to sacrifice my well-being than to face the truth about their golden child. I started to realize that cutting them out wasn't just about what happened with Sarah. It was about a lifetime of imbalance, of being expected to carry more while receiving less. The betrayal was the breaking point, but the cracks had been forming for years. Eventually, I began reconnecting with people who truly cared for me. Friends who didn't judge me. Cousins who quietly admitted they had seen the favoritism too. Slowly, I built a new kind of family, one not defined by blood, but by loyalty and love. Sarah tried reaching out again after the divorce was finalized, but I never responded. I had no words left for her. Ryan never called, not once. And that told me everything I needed to know. He had my parents, and that was enough for him. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about them, my parents, Ryan, the family I once thought would always be there. There are moments when the loneliness creeps in, when I wish things had been different, when I wish they had chosen me for once. But then I remind myself of the truth. If people show you over and over again that you don't matter to them, believing otherwise is just self-destruction. That I'm 40 years old, and I've learned a lesson most people never want to face. Sometimes the only way to survive is to let go of the people you thought you could never live without. Cutting my parents out was like cutting off a limb. It hurt like hell, but in the end, it saved me. When people ask me about my family now, I tell them this. I had a brother who destroyed my marriage and parents who defended him. And because of that, I walked away. I don't regret it. Not anymore. Because for the first time in my life, I am no longer living in someone else's shadow, that I am living for me.